Today I'll be reacting to the Borderland Dispatches with Katarina Szulc. She's a journalist from Canada who investigates and is an expert on Mexican drug cartels. And she just did a video on narco propaganda, specifically on the narco corridos. And we're gonna listen to her. I'm give you my thoughts, share my thoughts with you, and see what you guys think. And again, this is just my opinion. I think she's sharing her opinion as well, but I wanted to actually react to this video because it's been the talk, I think, for especially for Mexican media. There's so much attention that being put on these Mexican regional narco corrido artists, and I think that they're being a little bit unfair. But we'll take a listen.
And we're going to get into every single way they do this and have infiltrated Mexican and international culture through propaganda. So this propaganda that was started by the cartels in around like the 1980s, 1990s really started with music. Let's talk about an icon. We all know about this story, whether you're Mexican or not, whether you follow the narco news or not. But Chalino Sanchez, who's from Culiacan and was subsequently murdered in Culiacan, narco corridos were the start of a culture shift in Mexico that allowed the cartels to garner support from Mexican society because they were putting out banger songs, concerts were sold out, and at the same time, there was so much cartel lore around the very people who were singing about these narcos. So obviously, really infamous case is when, this video is still notorious today when Chalino Sanchez is on stage at his final concert in Culiacan. He's handed a note. I'm going to reenact it. He's handed a note, reads the note, which allegedly was a death threat, wipes his sweat, and just, tengo el alma enamorada, no más de pensar, corazón, banger that we all know. He became super notorious for this, then took 2 bullets to the head following the concert. What we're talking about today is how narcos have infiltrated basically every avenue of culture and now the digital age in order to garner support and make recruitment attractive. Because really, as we know, the only way for cartels to successfully operate is to have large numbers of support and people willing to put their lives on the line in order for these cartel operations to function. This started all the way back in the 1980s, and obviously it has not changed because we look at very popular Mexican music today and we see the rise of the corridos tumbados, which is really spearheaded by Peso Pluma, Nathaniel Cano, Junior H. These are figures who have become extremely popular in Mexican music. And truth be told, their music is a lot more explicit than it was during like the Chalino era in the 80s and the 90s. Now these guys are literally singing. I actually have lyrics here. Luis R. Conriquez and Neton Vega have this song called El Plumas, and they literally sing, Las 4 letras siguen funcionando bajo perfil, por eso hemos durado, sigue rifando el señor de los gallos, which is basically CG keeps operating low profile. That's why we've lasted. And the king, I guess that would, señor, the man of the roosters is outdoing himself. Basically referring to the leader of CG. Okay, so the point of this is that even though these like narco corridos have always existed and it's been a huge cultural thing, more than ever, this has become an extreme form of propaganda for the cartels because so many young people are listening to this music. It literally tops the Apple and Spotify charts, and they are explicitly referencing certain figures in the cartels, certain cartels, and certain actions.
This is just my opinion, and this is nothing against Katrina and her reporting or Borderland friends of mine. So big shouts out to them. But I think that this is the misrepresentation of what us as a society and the media is actually doing, where they want to put the blame on something or someone. Going back to the 70s and 80s when the whole narco corrido culture began, and let's go back to why these songs are called corridos. They're basically songs about real life events. These artists, before they were thinking about propaganda and stuff like that, they were talking about real life events that was actually happening. And why they became popular is because people could relate to them, which is typical what happens to any music genre. They were talking about stuff that was going on in their environments. It was about love or betrayal, or a certain person, and they became popular just like rap did. And I will say, me growing up, with a Mexican culture, with my parents being Mexican immigrants, it's something that my father listened to all the time. And my father was a drug trafficker probably way before corridos were born, and so on. And just going back, that we're putting so much blame on the genre of why so many young people are being attracted to the music, or blaming the music for why there's so much influence in the cartel world. And I will say, look, these Mexican corridos just started topping the charts just recently, this past year. And I think that's something, for me being involved in music and for the culture, I think it's amazing. But now to kind of be putting the blame on them, when we've been having a cartel problem for decades, way before the music was topping the charts. And going back to the history of what it was, with even with American, with rap or gangster rap, I remember listening to NWA, and there was a big old movement against stopping gangster rap because it was poisoning the youth. And that genre was created with young people that were rapping about what was going on in their environments. But yet now you're blaming the music that they took, because they were actually singing about what they were seeing. And I see this with the Mexican media and the government, that they blame, they want to ban corridos. They're like, why don't they start by banning working with cartels and allowing cartels to exist? But they'll put the blame on the artists, especially some of these artists are American, that are just continuing on what it is, what the culture is. And for instance, for many years, it was Bad Bunny and the Caribbean artists, like from Puerto Rico, and reggaeton, that were had the charts, and they're talking about that life as well. But now the narco corridos, just because you have that word, is being like used as a weapon for the media, and like propaganda itself, so that we could listen to this, and we could listen to other outlets talk about how music is affecting the youth. But yet we fail to realize that no, it's the drugs, it's the demand, it's the governments that are actually, working with these cartels, that are giving these people so many power and influence. Yet you want to stop someone from singing a song about the life, which I think that to me is just art. Because I listened to videos, I listened to as a kid, and I will tell you one thing is that I did not base my wants of joining, a cartel or being involved with drug trafficking on music. I joined it because it was my environment, everything that I knew, because of the money, because this false hope of negativity that we all kind of grow up in these type of environments, that we think that it's cool, or whatever the reason is. But music is not one a thing. I remember thinking back about rock and roll, right? And rock and roll was blamed for drug use. But now it's like, it's great. Rock and roll is great music. It's basically the foundation of American music, and it's considered to be the best genre of music. Now we don't say it has anything to do with drugs or drug use, and it's unfortunate. I think that the bigger picture is that we need to stop the demand on drugs. Coming from Chicago, you see it. They're gonna blame the violence on drill music. That violence has been there for decades, way before drill music. And we always look for the smallest things to blame, instead of actually looking at the problem as for what it is. The Mexican government is gonna blame Peso Pluma. Peso Pluma is a kid that didn't even grow up in that life, that sings about what the culture probably wants to hear about, or what he likes, or he wants to have a song about Show. And there's the Tucanes have songs about every drug lord and story about them. And and that's been around for decades. Music is made to entertain, but it's also kind of a story about what real life is like. And I guarantee you, you take away the music, you take away these corridos, those cartels are still going to exist. You're still going to have thousands of kids joining cartels because it's their environment. It's the false narrative that they think that they could join one of these cartels and have the power and have the money because it's what they see. I was one of those kids that idolized these people, idolized drug traffickers. I didn't need to know, or hear a song about them because I would grew up in those environments where I wanted the money. And I idolized the power and the respect, I guess, that people give them. And it has nothing to do with a song. They became more known, maybe, but there's people that are never been in that environment that love to listen to this music, just like they would listen to Bad Bunny or Taylor Swift and so on. And I think it's just unfortunate that the media plays into this. They look at something to blame. They look at artists who are just taking an art that they like, being successful, and now they're responsible, which is totally unfair. I think I applaud all those Mexican artists that finally put Mexican regional music on the top of the charts worldwide. It's not just in Mexico, but it's worldwide. I think there's two or three different Mexican artists on the top charts now on Spotify, Apple Music, and on YouTube. It's just art. It's art to me. And I think just because someone likes it doesn't mean that they agree with drug trafficking. And it's unfortunate, especially with the Mexican government. It's a joke that they're making laws stopping, people from being able to play this type of music when they should just stop being in bed with them. They should stop being so corrupt and making laws to go after these cartels so that they don't exist. They should start, by maybe, focusing on giving these kids a different opportunity because for Mexicans, they know what the government is. They know what politician is. This is something that exists, and it doesn't exist because of a song. It exists because of people like the government and people who point their fingers at the smallest thing instead of actually looking at trying to do something different for the culture. Corridos is part of the Mexican culture, but not all Mexicans are narcos. And this is what it has come to. I applaud all those artists, and me as someone who's a big advocate against drug cartels today. And I use my whole life as a deterrent for for the youth to not get involved with that type of life. It doesn't mean that I can't like a song or I can't like an artist. And I think that that's what the culture is. But to blame the narco culture and drug trafficking on music is ridiculous.